Title Update 4 went live earlier this week, and I feel that after nearly 3 months of waiting patiently, I've given this game enough time to settle in, find its way, and mature into something greater than its predecessor. So today, I am ready to dive headlong into what the hell has happened to weaponry in this game by comparing it to its predecessor, The Division, and through this analysis, try to offer up some alternatives to something that could have gone so right. You know what? To hell with it. You done screwed it up. What's going on, everybody? It's LtBuzzLitebeer, and like I said, I've been patiently waiting over the past 3 months since The Division 2's launch for the dev team to make, at least in my humble opinion, some much needed changes to weaponry and weapon talents. Title Update 4 has ushered in none of those changes that I felt needed to be installed, so the result is me posting this video. And I'm not new to this style of video, as I posted a similar one nearly 4 months ago after returning from a Ubisoft-sponsored event in January, where I stated that The Division 2 was not yet ready, and that resulted in it being my most downvoted video ever. Still, what I was saying was true, and I felt it needed to be brought into the open, and so, nearly 3 months after launch, I have arrived at this video concerning weaponry and where it has gone so wrong. I'm just going to come right out and say that in its current state, weaponry and weapon talents are completely screwed up and lagging far behind that which The Division brought to the table. So without comparison just yet, meaning I'm not going to bring up The Division weaponry and talents, let me show you how bad weaponry and weapon talents have gotten in The Division 2. First up are the weapon talents, and when you look at them on paper, the choices seem endless. So many combinations, active talents, handling talents, equipped or holstered talents. It seems like there are endless possibilities until you really start to look at them, and when you do, it really comes down to a few select talents that you want, and everything else is garbage. For example, let's take a look at the available talents for an assault rifle. Safe choice, right? I mean, everyone at some point in their Division game time will equip one of these assault rifles. If I am doing my math right, there are 19 active weapon talents, 7 handling talents, and a combination of 14 equipped or holstered talents available for an assault rifle, and that could lead to over 8,200 unique combinations. But not really. In reality, there are 3 top-tier talents with a further 2 that are possibilities for the active talent category, with those being Measured, Optimus, and Ranger, along with the possibilities of Breadbasket and Close and Personal as maybes. And that's it. Why so few? Because right now, everything in The Division 2 is predicated on damage, and you guessed it, more damage. Skills and skill power are useless, so any talents that boost the damage, duration, or health of skills is completely wasted. Likewise for crit. With the current meta, crit has been removed out of the damage conversation with the implementation of critical strike range, so any talent that boosts critical hit chance or critical hit damage is just not worth it. In addition, any active talent that lowers reload speeds, increases weapon handling, grants additional ammo back into the magazine, or increases damage against targets that are under a specific status effect are also just not worth it. But wait, it gets even better once we take a look at the handling weapon talents, as everything in this category is essentially scrap, with the exception of Allegro. 10% rate of fire is just too good to pass up on. In terms of raw DPS, it makes every other choice in this category laughable at best. Equipped weapon talents are predominantly useless, with the exception of Protected Reload and In Rhythm, but only if the reset chance was greater than 5%. Really? A weapon talent that has just a 5% chance of activating, and even then, it can only occur once every 60 seconds. No thanks. And now we finally land on the holstered talents. Talents that only activate when I put a specific weapon away and switch to another weapon. Other than double duty and possibly everlasting, nothing else in this category is worth looking for or recalibrating onto my primary weapon. And even if my assault rifle example did have, say, double duty on it, it wouldn't activate until I switched to my secondary weapon, and therefore holstering my assault rifle, of which I want to use because that is the example of the weapon I'm trying to convey. but I can't use it if I want double duty because it only works when I holster the weapon that it's on. So therefore, I've got to equip a secondary weapon that has double duty on it so that it will proc and work on my assault rifle. What the hell? So out of all of these supposed choices, combinations, ways of keeping the weaponry new, fresh, and exciting, I've really got 3 to 5 active weapon talents that I'm really looking for, 1 handling talent that clearly destroys all the rest, and a choice of 1 equipped weapon talent and 2 possible holstered weapon talents that don't do me any good unless I put away the weapon they are rolled on. Just taking a look back on weaponry and weapon talents in the original Division game, there were approximately 28 weapon talents, excluding the exotic AR weapons, to choose from for my assault rifle builds, and to be honest, I experimented with many of them, from adept and brutal on down to unforgiving and vicious. I really liked the endless combos, and besides a few handling weapon talents, and of course dominant, they all had some value and use. I made full headshot damage builds with brutal and prepared, tack-link chaining builds with skilled and determined, full PvE builds with ferocious and destructive, and even PvP builds with responsive, competent, and unforgiving. Using those 28 weapon talents and needing 3 at any given time, that leads to 3,276 possible combinations, approximately 1/3 the number of current weapon talent combos in the Division 2. With that old game systems of talents, crafting, and recalibration, they became an integral part of every agent's means of obtaining the perfect weapon. Maybe you went crazy into firearms and didn't have enough electronics to activate competent. No problem. Either loot or craft a weapon with competent in the free slot, and the problem was solved. Referring back to the Division 2 and adding to this broken system of possibilities is the fact that I can loot a weapon that has the exact weapon talent that I want on it, store it in my stash, and roll that weapon talent onto my selected primary weapon of choice, therefore essentially negating the whole system of RNG. Now, I am personally a Ranger guy. I like it on my assault rifles. So all I need to do is loot an assault rifle that has Ranger on it, regardless of its damage roll or other weapon talents. Store it in my stash, and wait for me to find another AR that has Allegro or vice versa. Stroll on over to the recalibration station, roll the exact weapon talent that I wanted onto the rifle, and voila, mission accomplished. I don't really care about the equipped or holster talents at all. So it really comes down to active and Allegro, nothing more. And can we talk about the static rolls on weaponry? Every assault rifle has 29% damage to health. There are no variances in this roll, and it makes the chase, the hunt for that special high-end weapon that has a really high baked-in weapon talent, obsolete. Do you remember back in the Division how it felt when you finally found that weapon that had a maxed out baked-in weapon talent, like when you found an assault rifle with maxed out enemy armor damage, or an SMG with max critical hit chance? Of course, I'm speaking before update 1.8 with the introduction of the recal station, but you get the idea. It really made the hunt worth something. How many hours did it take you to find that perfect weapon? 100? 1,000? How did you feel when you finally did? I mean, it stirred up emotions, a sense of accomplishment, of pride. There is none of that in the Division 2 weaponry loop. All I need to do is find a weapon that is close to what I want, roll the exact weapon talent onto the weapon, and I am done. I already know that the baked-in talent is maxed out. I don't care about the equipped or holstered weapon talent, and so on and so forth. I miss the older method of 3 weapon talents that actually meant something to my build, like we had in the original Division game. How about those classified striker PvE builds where we used ferocious and destructive, along with something like determined or skilled in the 3rd or free slot, so that we could spam tack links while speedrunning missions? Since I was heavily invested into firearms and stamina, I normally couldn't have a talent that required high electronics like determined or skilled, but because it was in the free slot, I could make it work. Now it's a few top tier choices for my active weapon talent, 1 handling talent, and a whole load of crap that is meaningless to me and every other agent out there. Seriously, we might as well have emotes or comical weapon talents in the 2nd and 3rd weapon talent slots, as we would get much more enjoyment out of them than these that we currently have. So today, I want to introduce my own weapon talent known as Toxic Shock into the weapon talent pool. Complete with its own description and lore text, who could go wrong with Toxic Shock on their primary weapon?
Fucking idiot. You fucking chod. You are a fucking tool. Have you seriously got nothing better to do? How did that work out for you, mate?
Checking for the key card.
You total fucking bellend.
Thank you to my mate, 21 Kiloton, for his vocal cameo, and while this section of the video is meant to be comedic, it serves a serious purpose by injecting over-the-top parody into a completely buggered situation. And while I'm on the subject of weaponry in the Division 2, for the love of God, can we please get a base damage indicator either on the weapon itself or in the stat screen? Instead, my weapon's damage output stats are bloated and inflated by all my gear mods and talents that I currently have equipped, which is interesting. But I really want to know what the base damage per round my weapon is putting out in addition to the DPS figures that I'm currently shown. Why? Because one of the few items that is still completely left to RNG when it comes to weaponry is base damage rolls. You can have two identically equipped weapons with the same exact weapon talents, have the same gear equipped while you switch between the two weapons, but their DPS numbers are different. Well, why is that? Because one of the weapons has a higher base damage number than the other identical weapon. Is it too much to ask to have some numerical indicator either on the weapon screen itself or in the stat screen that shows me the exact base damage of the weapon without me needing a mathematics degree to figure it out? Another alternative could be to show a percentile number on each weapon. For example, I roll across an SMG on the ground and once I examine it, it says 50%, which would mean in terms of base damage, it is in the 50th percentile of base damage rolls for that specific weapon. Well, in that case, I might think twice before equipping it, but at least it would require just a few seconds of my time for me to decide if it's worth equipping, recalibrating, or even keeping. Why do I need to switch back and forth between different M60 LMGs, looking at the different damage numbers, or using the recal station to add unhinged to my favorite M60 if it has a really low base damage roll? How can you definitively tell if your weapon has a lower or higher base damage roll? Well, you can't. Or at least without reverse engineering the base damage numbers using the DPS calculations with every category filled in with your weapon damage, baked in weapon talents, etc. Why is this? Can we please just make it easy enough for casuals and hardcore agents alike to use? So what can be done about all of this mess? Well, first, skill power and skills need to be reworked into something viable as a means of consistently putting out damage. This will make skill power weapon talents relevant and add them back into the pool of sought after weapon talents. Secondly, crit and everything about crit needs to be evaluated and reworked into something that players will look to spec into. When agents are clearly avoiding every offensive stat other than headshot damage or weapon damage, the dev team needs to act fast, as it's quickly becoming stale. Some active weapon talents need to be evaluated in terms of if they should remain weapon talents or be reworked and reintroduced as gear talents. As an example, we have weapon talents that offer up small crit bonuses either to chance or damage and weapon handling talents. These could be reformed into constant gear set talents versus situational bonuses on our primary means of dealing damage, our weaponry. Next, the team really needs to sit down and brainstorm, consult the community, and even look back on weaponry, RNG, baked in weapon talents from Div 1, along with how everything is tied together now in Division 2 in terms of offensive, defensive, and skill points. On paper, the new system showed promise, but with skill power and crit really not being worthwhile, this whole system is a one-trick pony, so to speak, and it forces players into a few weapon builds while relegating everything else to substandard to downright junky. This system has essentially turned weaponry into meaningless stat sticks that all seem to handle the same, and it comes down to our gear to really advance our builds. With huge weapon damage bonuses, offensive mods, and weapon talents like On the Ropes, Unstoppable Force, Devastating, and Berserk, gear has now passed by weaponry as the means for producing huge damage gains. Honestly, I feel that many of these gear talents should be moved into the weapon talent pool, therefore opening up agents to more possibilities for talent combinations. And finally, the system needs to be amended to include non-static weapon rolls, a relevant system of free weapon talents with no point restrictions, and within all of this, recalibration needs to be reworked into a facet of the game that takes on meaning and purpose. With non-static weapon rolls, agents will re-engage the grind in search of those god roll weapons. Reintroducing the third free talent will allow agents to truly embrace customization and promote min-max builds. And the recalibration station should be there for agents to add that third meaningful weapon talent onto a weapon to match it perfectly with the agent's needs, instead of a way of adding 1 to 3 to 5 active weapon talents on and then calling it quits. In retrospect, I don't know if this video is coming out of boredom or just downright frustration with The Division 2. All I know is that The Division was a flawed game. I mean, that we can all agree on. But even with those flaws, I played it non-stop and made time to knock out commendations and global events. I chased down gear with ferocity, and I produced content with vigor and purpose. For The Division 2, I'm just not feeling that. Sad as it makes me feel to say that, but I've got to be honest. I just don't feel that burning desire to log on, hit up the DZ for an hour before work, own another player or two, hell, even get owned myself a few times, extract some gear, and then head into work with a huge smile on my face. I can't really put my finger on that one glaring item that The Division had that The Division 2 doesn't, but it just doesn't give me that same feeling. Even now, when I boot up Div 1 and run around New York, I get this awesome vibe of familiarity and excitement. Survival, the underground, the huge DZ, PvE content that could be sold with a huge variety of builds, the lore, even those freaking hunters, it just all worked. And ever since I got to play the Div 2 in January, and reported back with my The Division 2 is not yet finished video, and all the way up to the present, the Div 2 is just not working for me. Now, I'm not saying it's a terrible game, and much respect to all the employees that spent countless hours and even years of their lives crafting this game, but it just isn't packing the punch, delivering that thrill that the original game did. I don't know. Maybe once the new content drops and more players re-engage with Washington, D.C., it will all start to spark my interest. But right now, I find myself at a crossroads of what to do. As always, I look forward to reading your thoughts and feelings in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about Division 2, Division 1, the differences, anything's fair game. If you could take the time to rate the video with a huge thumbs up, it would be greatly appreciated. I have received many messages from longtime YouTube followers that they are not receiving any notifications when I do post content, and that is due to the way you have saved your notifications tab for my channel and content. If you haven't taken the time to pound that sub button, it would be greatly appreciated. And make sure to click on the bell icon and set your notifications to get notified about every new video for my channel. The bell will show as grade N. We'll have the lines on either side to indicate your settings. Also, make sure to follow me on Twitter and look for me on Twitch as well. Until my next video, this is LtBuzzLitebeer, signing off.